James Meredith, an Air Force veteran, applied to Ole Miss, but they would not accept him because of his race.
James Meredith himself filed a lawsuit against the university with help from the NAACP claiming racial discrimination. The Supreme Court ruled in Meredith's favor, but Mississippi Governor Ross Barnett attempted to defy the Supreme Court decision, creating a constitutional crisis between the state of Mississippi and the federal government.
Although Barnett disagreed with this, Meredith won his court case because of Brown v. Board of Education, which protected people from racial segregation in educational facilities. A direct account is from Governor Barnett. Quote, "I have made my position in this matter crystal clear. I have said in every county in Mississippi that no school in our state will be integrated while I am your governor. I shall do everything in my power to prevent integration in our schools." End quote, Governor Ross Barnett.
Meredith arrived at the school protected by federal forces, but a mob of more than 2,000 students and many others formed to block his way.
In the riots, 2 people were killed and many were injured.
My obligation under the Constitution and the statutes of the United States was and is to implement the orders of the court.
Kennedy heard about the riots and knew that he had to suppress them. He sent federal marshals and later even National Guardsmen in what essentially amounted to a military occupation of about 31,000 federal troops. It took all of these troops to get Meredith to class, showing the strength of the segregationism within Mississippi.
Meredith ended up graduating from Ole Miss with a degree in political science, and he started the March Against Fear in order to raise awareness. But midway through the march, he was shot by a sniper. Martin Luther King Jr., Stokely Carmichael, and Floyd McKissick continued to walk for him from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi.
A quote from James Meredith says, "I do hope to see the day that the million Negroes that live in the state of Mississippi will have cause not to fear as they fear today. I simply ask that the federal agencies use the power and prestige of their position to ensure the full rights of our people."
According to one recent survey, 1 in 5 voters lives in a state that requires photo ID to vote, but don't know it. In this election cycle, the situation has gotten a whole lot more complicated, a wave of new laws making it tougher than ever just to cast a ballot.
One of the most prevalent issues surrounding inequality in America today is voter discrimination, specifically voter ID laws and gerrymandering. In 1965, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, which outlawed the discriminatory voting practices adopted in many southern states after the Civil War, including literacy tests as a prerequisite to voting. Although this was a big help at the time, legislators have found new ways to discriminate against specific races in order to skew voting results. A new study from researchers at the University of California, San Diego say that, quote, "strict photo identification laws have a differentially negative impact on the turnout of Hispanics, Blacks, and mixed-race Americans in primaries and general elections." Before 2006, no state required photo identification to vote on Election Day. Today, 10 states have this requirement, and a total of 33 states have some version of voter identification rules on the books. The result? Scholars have proven that racial minorities have less access to photo IDs, either because they can't afford one or they live in a poor neighborhood where IDs are not easily purchased, and therefore are not granted the same opportunities to vote. Hispanics are shown to be affected the most. Turnout is 7.1 percentage points lower in general elections and 5.3 points lower in primaries in strict ID states than in other states. Strict ID laws mean lower African American, Asian American, and multiracial American turnout as well, while white turnout is unaffected. Because minority voters tend to be Democrats, strict voter ID laws tilt the primary electorate dramatically to favor Republicans. Not surprisingly, these strict ID laws are passed almost exclusively by Republican legislatures. The other tactic is gerrymandering, defined as manipulating the boundaries of an electoral constituency so as to favor one party or class. In our government today, district boundaries are continually redrawn in order to protect or harm the political interests of incumbents, parties, and minorities. This practice began in the early years of the Republic and has been a source of controversy and criticism throughout American history. There are two types of gerrymandering. The first is packing, meaning that the dominant party overseeing the redistricting process packs the electorate of the opposition party into as few districts as possible. The second type is cracking, where the majority party splits the opposition party's strong base and dilutes its voters into several districts where they constitute a minority. This can be a problem because it oftentimes causes the candidate that has more popular votes to still end up losing to a less popular candidate. The Campaign Legal Center reports that in 2012, in 6 state legislatures, the gerrymandering party received a minority of the statewide vote, yet still remained in control of the legislature. Unfortunately, political or bipartisan gerrymandering is permissible. Racial gerrymandering is technically illegal, but it can be hard to prove the intentions of the redistricting. The most recent incident of this was in Texas. A Republican-drawn map setting the boundaries of Texas's state house districts violated the U.S. Constitution by intentionally discriminating against minority voters. Again, this gave Republicans the advantage because minority voters tend to be Democrats. There are some things being done to address this issue. For example, some states, most recently California, have used the initiative process to set up an independent redistricting commission. Others, like Florida, have forced their state legislators to follow standards such as partisan fairness in drawing new maps.